we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark Podcast. This is me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you ever wanted to reach out to the podcast and let us know about a topic, or if you ever wanted to even be on the podcast, check out our DMs at the Bigmark Podcast, at the Bigmark Pod. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. Rate and review, share your podcast with your friends. I'm so happy that all you guys have taken your time out of your day to be here. If you do have a little bit more time, please share the podcast, like it, subscribe, follow along. Just be a part of the Bigmark community. And like I said, talk amongst yourselves. I always like to say, I try to cover such a broad range of subjects that I want people to engage and create a community that, you know, hey, we're going to bring maybe people that wouldn't necessarily find themselves in the same room and might have different backgrounds, might have different interests, but hopefully, like I said, this range of topics brings everyone together and we can start sharing these ideas. Because again, maybe it might not be something you agree with, but the mark of an intelligent mind is entertaining an idea without accepting it. So that's what I like to live by, and we're going to keep the good times rolling and go with a sweet topic today. Mad TV, super interesting. I used to love this show. I used to really like, this was like kind of my sketch show growing up, like as a young kid. Everyone loves SNL. I also loved it In Living Color, which is tremendous. And in my research, I found that these two are actually Mad TV and In Living Color are actually very, very linked to each other. But in fact, some of the artists, comedians, writers, actors, whatever, that you know today and you see today, whether they're doing podcasts, whether they're doing huge big movies still, came from Mad TV. And it was really cool, like I said, doing some of this research and finding out a little bit more about this show that I loved, and seeing all these names that I continue to recognize and been like, oh yeah, that's where I know them from originally. Or, you know, some other people that will never let you forget that they were on Mad TV. But it's a really, really cool show. It was created by David Saltzman, Fax Barr, and Adam Small. It premiered on October 14th, 1995 on Fox, which, again, you know, SNL is on NBC. I don't know if there were like other competing sketch shows on like CBS or whatever at the time. You know, SCTV, other sketch shows from all time, like I mentioned, In Living Color. There's been shows like I guess, well, SCTV is Second City Television. So I can't recall any other ones off the top of my head. But again, there's all these other sketch shows that were out there. It ran for 14 seasons. Its final 326th episode aired on May 16th, 2009. And again, it's loosely based on the humor magazine Mad, which, if you've never seen that, which would be a shame, but again, magazines are starting to kind of go out of style. It was just this comic magazine. It would just kind of make fun of stuff. I remember being a kid and them still, like, friends of mine still getting one, and they were relatively crass, relatively crude. It was kind of like, imagine like some of the cartoons and stuff from like Playboy, but like expanded into an entire magazine. Not necessarily all raunchy and sex driven, but like crude or disgusting. Again, just like imagine like if a little kid, like a little boy, like wrote and like edited a magazine, what would he have in it? Again, jokes, articles, comic strips, things like that, right? So they tried to kind of like, obviously you can only base it off so much, but they they did feature some straight up animated stuff on Mad TV that was right out of Mad Magazine's pages. Mad TV's pre-taped satirical sketches, so everything was kind of like this satire, was primarily based around pop culture. So it featured parodies on films, TV series, movies, music videos, celebrities, and occasionally politics and like more original characters. Many of which are recurring, which is super cool. We'll go over some of those recurring characters later. Some of them are just, oh my God, absolutely hilarious. It was actually Saltzman created Mad TV after he and record producer Quincy Jones purchased the rights to Mad in 1995. He actually soon brought on former In Living Color writers Barr and Small as showrunners. Like I said, that's that link with In Living Color. And of course, the show was intended to originally compete with a fellow sketch comedy series Saturday Night Live, which at that time was being completely ridiculed by critics and audiences upon the premiere of Mad TV. And even still, Mad TV actually typically fell behind SNL in ratings, and has kind of since been described by critics as an edgier cousin of SNL, which is interesting. I mean, like maybe for the time, and again, it's like the weirdest thing on it being on Fox Network. And if you've watched any of my other episodes and you've seen me talk about Arrested Development, Fox was such a weird network, especially post 9/11. And obviously, Mad TV premiered in 1995, but a good bulk of the series was after 2001, and just was like such a different time in television. And Fox was really starting to lean into reality television. Actually, all of TV was really leaning into that. And again, it just was getting away from more thought-provoking comedy. Not that every sketch show is thought-provoking all the time, but just comedy was getting very, very kind of one directional, one road at that time. The show's diverse cast over the years consisted of popular members, such as the longest running original member, Deborah Wilson, and its longest running member overall, Michael McDonald. Recurring celebrity impressions and characters attracted both fan followings and controversy, while critical reception of the series varied, though it was often negative. It had appeared on several critics' lists of the best sketch comedy television series of all time, and was nominated for a number of awards, including 43 Primetime Emmy Awards, 5 of which it won. So I guess it's negative overall, but holy shit, like, it won a good chunk of Emmys, got a lot of nominations, so good for them. And then 20th anniversary reunion happened on the CW, which I thought was strange. It's not even the network that it was originally on. And it tried to have this kind of like revive season. I never really watched any of that. It only lasted for a season, 1 year. So they kind of blew it. It has a kind of a funny like backstory, the development of it anyway. William Gaines, who actually owned EC Comics and EC, not DC, he published the American humor magazine Mad from 1950 until 1992, and he refused to sell the rights of the magazine because he despised television. So 1995, following Gaines's death in 92, EC Comics sold the rights to Mad to record producer Quincy Jones and TV producer David Saltzman. So poor William Gaines, sorry Billy, basically almost right after you died, as soon as you were fresh in the grave, your company sold the rights, and literally the thing you despised was slapped on the end of the thing you created. Mad TV was born. I thought that was kind of ironic. It's a little bit of tongue in cheek. You know what? Fuck it. William Gaines probably thought that was funny. so again, they brought on Fax Bar and Adam Small after they were after they kind of cut their teeth writing on Living Color in 1992. Well, I guess in the previous years, but that's when they left. They ended up leaving in Living Color in 92 after David Alan Grier informed Barr that the showrunner Keenan Ivory Wayans had fired the show's whole staff. So, the series, like, when you think of a sketch show, when I was young, but when I was starting to watch shows like this, I always kind of watched them thinking, like, do the people that like perform the sketches always, like, are they the ones that are also writing it? Because I think I watched, like, Whose Line Is It Anyway is probably what kind of, like, skewed my ideas, is that, you kind of see them, like, you see the dudes doing improv, and that's what I kind of thought it was. It was like, oh, it's this improv that's happening, and I think SCTV was happening like that, maybe more so that the performers were maybe more involved in writing. But that's the thing, it's like a lot of these shows have complete huge staff of writers that are helping to write a lot of these sketches, and then you have the performers or just the actors performing said sketches, right? So I think SNL is a little bit of the same, where I guess depending on who you are, if you have that skill of writing and performing, you get to do both, which is pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting to read in some of my research here. Patton Oswalt was actually one of the early writers. There was a bunch of writers for the Ben Stiller Show, Blaine Capitch, and again, just like this kind of diverse background coming from In Living, like with Barr and Small, coming from In Living Color, and this whole background of relatively, I'm assuming, relatively well seasoned sketch show writers. Things kind of came right off the bat, I feel, for Mad TV, and that seems really cool. Like it was like, boom, the pieces were all there, ready, set, go. Whether that means it hit the roof right away, not necessarily, but I always really enjoyed the show like this, and I think it was because the writing was so great. It was pre-taped, so it wasn't live like SNL. And it contained a combination of short live-action sketches, movie parodies, and animated sketches. Again, the animated segments of Spy vs. Spy, which was like a little comic strip right out of Mad Magazine, was a wordless comic strip originally featured, like I mentioned, in Mad Magazine, and it appeared on Mad TV for 4 seasons, starting with its first season. In fact, I actually have, it might be hard for you to see on the video, but the white spy and the black spy are right here. They've always been there. Look at that. It's like this episode was made to happen. The theme song for the show for Mad TV was really interesting. It was actually created by Heavy D and the Boys, who actually created the theme song for In Living Color too, which is super cool. In Living Color. And it was all filmed in Hollywood studios in Hollywood, which, again, you can kind of look at it like it's almost like the West Coast SNL too, right? So there might have been that rivalry there, even though SNL was really hurting during those years. It wasn't the best years of SNL. It always will seem that it has that legacy behind it. It always has that whole, the legend of SNL that I think will always keep it alive and keep it going. It's too bad, again, like I mentioned, that Fox didn't put enough, like, there was a lot of budget cuts that happened. involving the production of the show. There was all these budget cuts, and Fox just never really gave the show the budget that it deserved. And again, I think that really hurt the show. It was Nicole Garcia, who is the casting director, did say that this series skewed a little urban, which I'm rolling my eyes at, because it's just like, it's such a fucking Hollywood term, and like, whatever. I guess it did. I don't know, because there was more black people on the show. Fuck, I don't get that. It's a weird thing to say, especially for the bloody casting director to say. But again, it's on Fox at this time. Really weird right-wing shit was happening at Fox at the time, and I just think people just weren't ready for some of the comedy that was on there anyway. By the time the show was canceled, which was in November 2008, it actually was Fox's fourth longest running series. So it was fourth behind The Simpsons, Cops, and America's Most Wanted. So Mad TV was running for a long time, and I guess it was just like, yeah, there were budget cuts and stuff, but I guess they just put enough in to keep things alive, which was kind of sad. But like I mentioned, so many people, so many cast members, so many writers that came from the show went on to do great things, right? Like, its first season, the cast was Deborah Wilson, Nicole Sullivan, Phil Lamar, Artie Lang, Mary Scheer, Orlando Jones, David Herman, and Brian Callen, who, I've mentioned before a bunch of times. He was on the 10-Minute Podcast. He's kind of fallen from grace at this point, so shout out to Brian Callen, but this is where he started, and he never really lets anyone forget that. That's for sure. Deborah Wilson was actually the first cast member I hired for Mad TV. She was in the first 8 seasons of the series from 95 to 2003. She was the first and only black female cast member during her time on the show. And she later stated that her decision to leave in 2003 was motivated by her discovery that another white male cast member who joined after her was earning more than her, and that her attempts to negotiate her salary failed. So that was such a shame. She's so talented, such a phenomenal comedian, actress, just tremendous, so great. Michael McDonald, so classic. He was on the show for 10 seasons, so he was the longest running and oldest cast member. And he actually directed some segments too. Second longest running cast member was Ari Spears. Absolutely tremendous actor there as well. Alex Borstein, she is just a tremendous actress. She has done so many other things. And she was on Marvelous Miss Maisel. Marvelous Miss Maisel, absolutely amazing. Ike Barinholtz, he was on the show as well. Will Sasso, my boy, my dog, my Canadian man. What up, Will Sasso? I'm pretty sure he joined the show when he was like 19 or 20 or something like that. He was fucking young as fuck, which is hilarious. Mo Collins, she joined in 1998. Absolutely phenomenal. Stephanie Weir, Nicole Parker, Bobby Lee. Shout out Bobby Lee. He's the man. I was just watching some stuff about him again today, about all the shit that happened, and it reminded me of that. Check out my podcast on all the stuff that went down with Bobby Lee. And again, other cast members to this day, other cast members that we know are still famous today. Comedians Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key were cast in its 9th season, but Jordan and Peele, they went on to do their own show. Key and Peele was the show. Tremendous. Another great sketch comedy show. There's one that I forgot to mention. And it was really cool to see them move on and pursue other roles and do other things, which is so cool. And obviously there's just some absolutely phenomenal characters through the years on the show. Michael McDonald played this character called Stuart, who was fucking wild. Like, look what I can do. Just like this like freak show. And his mom was played by Mo Collins. She just did a fucking amazing job as the mom. It's so hard to not show you guys clips, but like, again, just check that out. It's so dumb and probably hasn't aged all that well, but so fucking hilarious. Alex Borstein played a character known as Miss Swan, whose actual name was Bunny Swan. Funny enough. Obviously, there was like, maybe a little bit of cultural appropriation going on there, and that again probably wouldn't age well these days. But she's phenomenal. Coach Hines, played by Keegan-Michael Key, absolutely phenomenal. Oh my god, that's one of my favorite characters ever. I love Coach Hines. So fucking good, so amazing. Bobby Lee's character, the incompetent like Asian interpreter. There's like an hot dog type scenario going on there. Holy shit. Just like irreverent, amazing comedy. Just such good characters, and a lot of great impressions of celebrities and other artists and things like that. Will Sasso, Ari Spears, Deborah Wilson did a phenomenal fucking Whitney Houston. Will Sasso can basically imitate almost anyone. Ari Spears did a great Bill Cosby, and he also does an amazing Jay-Z. Tremendous. Frank Caliendo was actually on Mad TV, so he did John Madden and many other impressions. Just absolutely phenomenal. Some of my favorite sketches over the years, again, talk about impressions. Will Sasso did a great James Gandolfini in a Sopranos skit where it's like the Sopranos if they were on like AMC or like just like normal television. So it's like been edited for TV. And every time someone swears, they like cut out all the swear words and just like skip ahead in the scene. So like the whole scenes are like 25 seconds because a 10-minute scene's been cut down because everyone's just like fucking swearing the whole time because it's the Sopranos. Love it. Another Will Sasso, Kenny Rogers Jackass. Such an amazing skit. It's Kenny Rogers, the singer, hosting Jackass, and they're just doing absolutely all types of crazy shit. You got eggnog in my goat's milk. Again, anything Arnold Schwarzenegger, Will Sasso does a phenomenal job there. There's a Lost parody, which I've always loved. They just do such a great job of really banging down a lot of the characters on that stupid show, and then they kind of turn it into this little like Survivor parody / whatever. I don't know. It's always interesting with these sketch shows, right? Like throughout the show, it's really hard to make sure that every single skit is a hit. And yes, they sit at these writers' tables and they figure out all these plans and cut skits that don't make sense and move skits around. They probably reuse things and they probably recycle things here and there. But again, it's such a different world of you're just like hitting this. It's like a numbers game almost. You're just trying to push out all these. So when you do get a sketch show that just almost night after night you can't miss, like there are years of SNL that were just absolutely amazing. And I think Mad TV had some really great years too. But again, when you're buried in the minutia of other shows, you're being constantly compared to this other show that yes, in your design might have come up as like, oh, you were created as a direct competitor of SNL. Maybe we should have looked at it as it's something completely different than SNL. It's not necessarily something that's a one-to-one comparison in that way, right? So I've always remembered Mad TV fondly. I always thought it was I thought, again, it had a great cast, great impressions. Again, skits that still stick with me today that I still think about. And yeah, doing the research of this obviously like kind of jogged my memory for a lot of stuff. But again, it's like when you watch these shows, especially as a young person, like these characters and comedy stylings, right? Like I always fucking talk about Kenny versus Spenny, that it was such a formative show for me just personally. It's formative for my own sense of humor, right? So I'm watching that, and I used to watch it with my mom. She used to love watching the show, and again, it's we want to compare things that are similar. We want to say, hey, this is the same version as this, or this is just a recreation of that. And in some ways it that becomes diminutive. It really, to me anyway, it really devalues a lot of things, because why can't we just accept something as its own self? Why can't we accept Mad TV as a show on its own? Why do we have to look at it as, oh, it's just, the redheaded stepson of SNL? Why do we have to look at SNL as this gleaming beacon of like what every sketch show should be, just because at one point it had this great history, right? So I think, comparison is the thief of joy, or whatever they say. I'm pretty sure. And I think that can be the case. And I think that was the case for Mad TV. And it's great. And it's probably was a stepping stone for a lot of those celebrities and a lot of those comedians and writers that we know today, cut their chops, or again, just gained valuable experiences from the show and then moved on. And I think that is great. But in the grand scheme of things, where does SNL sit as one of those shows, right? It was fucking one of, if you can mention in the same breath as The Simpsons, Cops, America's Most Wanted, Mad TV as the longest running shows of Fox, of any network, it's got to mean something, right? It's got to mean something. Great show though. Check out the old clips. I'm sure a ton of them are on YouTube. Go watch them. Go follow along. Again, Bobby Lee, Will Sasso, they're still in the mix today. Say what you will about Brian Callen. All these other dudes, like, right? Like, they're still around. They're still funny. They might be doing fucking weird shit on the side, but God bless. Again, great show. Go check it out. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for taking your time, listening to me go on about this great show, and just take a little walk down memory lane. Hit us up on our DMs, on our Twitter at the Bigmark Podcast, on our Instagram at the Bigmark Pod, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. Follow, subscribe, like, share, tell your friends, rate the podcast. Thanks again. Love you all. See you soon. Peace.